There's just something so refreshing by seeing All For One just casually sling the symbol of peace, the number one hero, away like a rag doll. This is the episode that I have been patiently waiting for. Now, just to clarify, this is not the end, so to say, of the fight. This is just the beginning. And most likely, next week is truly gonna be the crazy stuff, like the truly emotional and crazy events that many manga readers have been looking forward to, even myself included. As someone that has been a fan of this series for years, I've wanted to see this entire event animated, and finally it has begun. The way this episode was, especially seeing All Might just come in out of nowhere and just slam his fist straight in to All For One, and the man grabs All Might's fist and holds him in place, just shows how crazy of a villain All For One is. Now, I want to get into some clarifications for what All Might did and how ridiculous it is for what All For One did up against All Might. Number one, it was stated in this episode that All For One was like, All Might, you've gotten considerably weaker. It's been about 30 seconds since I sent the Nomu over and all that, and it took you that long to get over here. So, ever since the Nomu first arrived to where, All Might was, and when he started trying to say Bakugo and everybody, he's like, no, and he screamed, that took all in the span of 30 seconds for him to go from that place all the way to where he's at right now. And he's like, man, you're weak now. You've slowed down. Which, when you factor in all of the time and all that, for instance, in the 30 seconds that it took All Might to arrive, you gotta imagine the talking to him going outside, talking to Endeavor, and he's like, do you have this? And then he ran over. So, you can kind of give or take a few seconds off of the 30 seconds that All For One said to All Might. Basically, it was just a rough estimate. For all we know, it could have been around like maybe 37 seconds, or 40 seconds, or it could have been around 15 seconds, or 20 seconds because of the dialogue, to All Might jumping after the dialogue over to where All For One is. We don't really have a rough time span, but we do know that how fast All Might was going from point A to point B was pretty freaking ridiculous, because he was coming from the sky. If you look very closely at that scene when he's coming out of nowhere, he comes from the sky and slams right in to All For One. You got to imagine the impact, the force of an individual with the strength of All Might that can land on someone like this, and the man caught All Might in midair, caught this man and held him in place. Now, if that doesn't speak anything about All For One's ridiculous strength, or All Might's absurd strength as well, I don't know what else I could say. Because what was also mentioned is that these two individuals, they're no longer in their prime. We are fully aware that All Might is no longer in his prime. This has been established since Episode 1, Season 1 of My Hero Academia. We have known that All Might is getting weaker and weaker. He no longer can use his quirk One For All as much anymore. He constantly has a time limit that's getting lower and lower as time goes on. And we know he's not in his prime. He's nowhere near what he once was. And you can see from the way this episode showcases All For One, he is also no longer in his prime. I mean, when All Might smashes this man's mask in, and you just see the final image of the episode, and you see this man talking, but his face is all messed up. You can see how his face just looks horrific. It shows that these two individuals, even though they're powerhouses, they're monsters, and pretty much nobody can really compare to them at this time, they are still not in their prime. So you could imagine how insane they were back in the past when they went at it at the first time, when they really were trying to kill each other. Which, that is something I do want to talk about. All Might has history with All For One, and a really big part of why All Might is damaged to this day and what has happened throughout his life ever since that fight is because of what All For One did. And I'm not going to give any spoilers or anything. I'm just going to point out some details, kind of pinning the dots together for you anime-onlys. At the end of the episode, All For One mentions a person's name called Shimura. And if you pay attention to when he was talking to Shigaraki, Shigaraki's original name is also Tenko Shimura. And you can kind of pin the dots together if you look at the scene that there is some correlation between All Might's mentor, the previous user of One For All, and Shigaraki. You can kind of piece those together. That's no spoilers, that's just the information he gave within the episode. And you could kind of already piece things together in the last episode because Shimura was name-dropped in Season 2. But I didn't say anything because it was still on the nose and it wasn't that obvious until this episode. So there you go. That'll leave for a lot of you anime-only fans to speculate on what that could potentially mean for Shigaraki and the previous One For All user that gave it to All Might. But anyways, let's talk about what All Might has done in the past. I want to reestablish the fact that All Might has a big and long history with All For One, a very bloody history. If you remember in the past, when we saw a brief glimpse of when All Might faced the ultimate evil, the greatest evil that the world has ever known, All For One, you saw an image of All Might just kneeling over a body. And you see how there's just a big pool of blood, All Might's hands are down, and he's looking down. That body is All For One. And basically what you get from that is that what All Might did in that moment was not what a hero would do. All Might, that is the symbol of peace, someone that upholds the law, someone that holds his ideals, and Izuku's ideals, many others' ideals within him. What he did in that moment against All For One was something a hero wouldn't do. He clearly went out of his way to try to kill All For One. Even All For One states in this episode, like, oh, you've come here to try to kill me again, All Might, and all that. That's how the episode kind of starts off, with the introduction of All Might versus All For One. So, yeah, that's a big part I want to point out, is that their history, it's pretty dark. And All Might was doing something that should not have been right for the number one hero. So there you go, food for thought. Now, speaking of All For One, there's a lot of characterization he gets, and it's one of the main reasons why he's one of my favorite characters in My Hero Academia, is because it's very thought-provoking on what type of person he really is. You don't really know if he's manipulating Shigaraki, or, Shigaraki's, friends, his group. You don't know if what he's saying, he's just trying to condition Shigaraki in a certain way. You have no idea what really All For One is thinking at any given time. But when you look at these little indicators throughout the episode, it does show that in some ways, he does care about Shigaraki. I mean, even if it at the start was conditioning, like he was conditioning Shigaraki to be used against All Might in some way, it's very apparent that he does have some form of bond with him. I mean, he went out of his way to protect Shigaraki while fighting All Might. I mean, that's pretty ridiculous when you think about it. Like, the man was fighting All Might, of all people, the number one hero, okay? He was brawling with All Might while protecting his henchmen or Shigaraki's group, for they can go on another day and continue doing what they're doing. He got them out of there. And so it's kind of like All Might and All For One were fighting for what they believed in, clashing of ideals, and also protecting people that they care about. For instance, you had it to where All Might was trying to get to Bakugo, save the man, while you had it to where All For One, he was trying to protect everybody behind him, his group of villains, for they can get out. It really puts a spin on the whole villains being villains and not caring about anybody that's around them. It really just shows that this is not your typical villain versus hero story. But going a little bit further, a little bit deeper into All For One, he also talks about how he wants to get a certain quirk that would suit Shigaraki. Which, that's a very fascinating tidbit that I think many are going to pick up on, is that we all know, we're fully aware that All For One, he's able to grab other people's quirks, steal them, and use them. You saw how he was using multiple quirks throughout the episode. And then on top of that, we do know that he's able to give people quirks, because that's how One For All was born in the first place. It mutated, and it became what it is today, and All Might now has that. So, he is able to give quirks and take quirks. And he states in this episode that he's like, your quirk is not right for Shigaraki. It would not be right for him how he uses things. So basically, when you look at that, it shows that he is now grabbing quirks with his own quirk, All For One, to be able to give to Shigaraki, which makes you wonder if he is eventually going to pass the torch to Shigaraki, give up his own quirks, his All For One quirk, to Shigaraki. That is the big question, the curveball with this episode. Is he just saying that? Is he wanting to pull, like, let's say, an Orochimaru from Naruto and maybe take over Shigaraki's body? Or was he actually legit wanting to pass the torch down to the next ultimate evil, the symbol of evil, which would be Shigaraki? And so there's a big comparison, some parallels between All Might and All For One, because All Might, he's getting a successor. Izuku is the successor. While Shigaraki, he is, in a way, he is All For One's successor. And from what we've seen established in Season 1 and then Season 2 and now Season 3, Izuku and Shigaraki have constantly had development. They're changing. And whatever Izuku goes through, Shigaraki goes through as well. He has his own issues on the side that he goes through, like, for instance, taking Stain's ideals and using them to have more people rally behind him, which was the big change in his character at the end of Season 2, which led to the events of Season 3, and how he had his vanguard go into the middle of the forest in the training camp. So, I mean, when you look at all these things, Shigaraki has developed thanks to his mentor, which is All For One, while Izuku has as well. They're both progressing, and you can see that because of their ideals or how they view things, they have become who they are thanks to the people they look up to. And it also is really cool by what All For One says to Shigaraki. When, Shigaraki is in a dark hole, he's by himself and he doesn't know what to do. For instance, when he's alone, isolated, and nobody was there to save him, no hero, because they were not allowed to be a hero because they didn't have their license, he was waiting for someone to save him. But eventually, someone that was just a villain came in and saved Shigaraki. And in that moment, the words, the way he used it, even if it was conditioning at the first to make Shigaraki just, idolize him, the thing is what he said really holds a lot of weight, and how broken hero society is. A villain, the ultimate evil, had to come in and save a boy and become his hero. So, this dude, Shigaraki, looks up to All For One like his All Might, like how Izuku looks at All Might. So it's crazy. So it's two pillars going up against each other. That is the message of this episode. Now, let's get into Best Jeanist for a second. What happened to Best Jeanist in this episode? Like I said, I'm a manga reader, so I know what to expect, but holy crap. I am absolutely stunned by how brutal that was done in this week's episode. I mean, don't get me wrong, Studio Bones, they're incredible. They've done a good job with the story. They've done a good job with the adaptation. They have expanded upon the core content, and they made it even better than the manga could ever be, which is not Horikoshi's fault, because he has limitations, it's manga. But the anime has just been amazing, and I should have expected some really godlike events throughout this episode and sequences when it comes to art and animation, but I still was blown away by the way Best Jeanist' scene was done. Now, I do want to talk about a few little minor details before I get into the tragic fall of Best Jeanist. Even despite the man getting hurt and flown back, this man in a quick instant saved everybody. Saved Mount Lady, saved Gang Orca, saved, Tiger, saved all of them, got them to safety, pushed them out of the way while he was in the middle. And you can see how the man was able to somewhat fight back. He was trying to fight back against All For One, even though he knew what All For One was kind of capable of. That actually shows a big difference between Best Jeanist and our group of characters, the kids, for instance, Izuku, Ida, Kirishima, Momo. It shows a big difference between all of them compared to a pro hero like Best Jeanist. Because, look, they were terrified. They were completely petrified. They didn't want to move. They were scared stiffless. And Izuku started comparing himself to, in the past when you let Bakugo just disappear in front of you, you couldn't save him, was because your body broke down. You couldn't move anymore because your body wouldn't let you. But now, it's no longer his body stopping him from saving Bakugo. It was actually his mind, his survival instincts, telling him, danger, 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 get the hell away, danger, you don't want to be here. And that is scary. And it shows someone like Izuku, which is our MC, that has charged in headfirst against impossible odds and some scary events, like, for instance, Muscular. He was terrified to the point where he couldn't even save his close friend. And this is Izuku, of all people, that will always charge in with a smile to save the person that he cares about, anybody. But he didn't do that. Best Jeanist showcased why he truly is a top hero. He decided to fight back, being fully aware of how insane All For One is. He's like, this man's comparable to All Might, but he's like, I can't let that get me down. I can't let that stop me. I have to face him. And he tried to fight back, but then he was put down. That gave me chills, not gonna lie. The entire sequence of events when All For One just shot this man, you see the man's chest just open up and all of that, and he just falls back. I'm like, oh my god, that's some brutal crap. I didn't think that would be that brutal, especially the way the blood scene was done. Just job well done, Studio Bones, and such a fantastic display of Best Jeanist' character and how far he would go to try to protect people, even though his life was really in danger. But also props to Mount Lady for the epic save as well. You know, she actually managed to block, you know, the villains with her face and fell over, which, you know, even though it doesn't seem like much, at the end of the day, Mount Lady managed to save Bakugo and all of them or they would have been caught, so props to her as well. It's not just Best Genius that did a good job, Mount Lady also stood out and actually managed to save Bakugo in the end. We all know that All Might is the number one hero, and as a hero, you have to protect the peace. You have to save people. You have to minimize damage. That's always been a thing that's been established since the very beginning of My Hero Academia, that heroes have to watch out for the environment, people, all that. They are constantly under restrictions to where they can't go all in and fight someone. They have to be very careful. But you could see in this episode, All For One's very aware of that, and he uses that against All Might. For instance, All Might, he was restricted. He was restricted to where he couldn't do anything. He couldn't use all of his force because if he did, he would hurt people around the city, but also he would hurt Bakugo because he was in the middle of the villains trying to capture him. And All For One, even though he has less restrictions, he was still kind of restricted. He was trying to keep All Might away from them, but it wasn't as bad as All Might's restrictions. And when finally Bakugo gets away, you could see to where he's like, oh, I'm fully aware of your title, All Might. I'm fully aware of your restrictions as a hero. You have so many things you like to protect. And you just see the zoom out on everybody that are just watching this colossal fight between two titans. And you see burning buildings and stuff, and they're just looking over the rubble at All Might and All For One. And he's basically saying, All Might, if you don't fight me, if you don't hold back the blows and blast I'm going to do, those people behind you, everyone around you, are going to die. That is the scary thing, because All For One, he is not someone that's just a brute or just strong for the sake of being strong. He is very aware of what heroes are capable of or what All Might's capable of, and he knows how to manipulate people, which All Might talks about. He is someone that loves to manipulate people, get in their head, make them upset, tear people down. And so it shows that he's really good with mind games, and it's definitely suiting for the Ultimate Evil, the number one, I guess, villain of the story thus far from what we have seen. But okay, so let's talk about one little thing that I think many need to be aware of, is the fact that in the episode, he talks to All Might like, you know how angry I am, how much I hate you, to where you took all my friends out, all of my friends, people that, you know, were with me when I was creating my organization, you know, my empire, you took them all down, and as you stand on top of their broken bodies, you were called the symbol of peace, the number one hero. And the way that dialogue is from All For One, it shows that he's not the typical villain that just is like, you ruined my ambitions, you ruined what I wanted, my power, my number one status. He didn't act like that. It legitimately looked like he was upset with All Might for hurting his friends, which humanizes All For One. He is not just a sociopath, just, you know, hurting and killing people. He is someone that obviously cares about people around him. So that is a nice little detail to point out that, you know, All Might, even though he was doing his job, but he did really upset All For One, and that is why he's so upset. So yeah, that's basically about it, besides little details with Bakugo and stuff. So Bakugo, his fight, I like the restrictions. I like how he was very aware of, you know, the situation with All Might, how he was holding All Might back. For instance, All Might, he couldn't really do much, because with Bakugo's presence there, All Might constantly had to figure out a way to get over to him, but he couldn't because All For One was holding him back. And that scene to where he's constantly trying to keep a distance and fight back against, you know, the League of Villains, holding them back in any way he possibly can, was pretty fantastic. I love the way that, you know, the scene was done in the anime. But especially the escape scene, when Izuku decides to save Bakugo, and he actually admits, like, I can't be the one to do it. I can't be the one to reach out my hand. It has to be you, Kirishima. You have to be the one to reach out your hand for Bakugo, because you two are on equal footing, on, you know, equals in each other's eyes. And we get to see brief little clips and flashbacks of that, showing how they are equals, and that they've been friends for a very long time. That subtle build up to this very scene. You gotta like that. That's just how amazing My Hero Academia's writing can be. But anyways, that entire segment, they managed to get Bakugo back, which means that All Might can do what he wants to do. He can fight and try to take down All For One and put him in jail. And also, you gotta admit, though, that scene to when All For One finally got, his friends away, Shigaraki's group. That was also a very heart-touching scene, because it's kind of like him saying, I also no longer have to worry about the people around me. I can go all in and not care. So they both have their restraints off. They can go all in without holding back, which is very scary. So next episode will truly be when the fight begins. But that's about it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. How do you feel about this week's episode? How do you feel about the events that happened? Did it live up to the hype? Did it live up to the quality that you expected from Studio Bones? Please be honest in the comments below. And I love you guys. Have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.